Okay, I'm gonna start. Let me. So I'm gonna start with Though Near or Far, and I'm gonna start with a recap of what happened last chapter. So we read chapter 1 yesterday, and chapter 1 was all of the humans had gone to the judge. They had failed their tests and were sent back to the bad place. Sean has decided that he is going to punish them, but he's also going to punish Michael. And he has punished Michael by wiping his memory and sending him into the new neighborhood with the humans to torture them. Obviously, not knowing, like Michael, not knowing that he used to be their friend. So, in the last chapter, he broke Eleanor's wrist. The bad Janet that was there turned out to be good Janet. Gave him a good old punch in the face, and the humans ran away within the constructed neighborhood of the fake good place. So that's where we're at. So now we're on chapter 2, which starts with a little bit of a flashback to Sean and Michael. And, just a heads up, just in case you didn't know, this is a, there's 5 chapters in this story. I do not think the tests were fair, and I feel that in general, this whole organization is on a very sticky wicket, where they get off judging or punishing anybody. That is dealt with in the show, in the last season. They talk a lot about, is punishment the right way to go about dealing with people who are bad? Because the central conceit that they get to is that nobody is a bad person. There's just people who try to be better, and there's people who don't. And sometimes you have to push people in the right direction to make them want to be better people. One of the things that they come down to is like they have this one guy that they're running through the tests, and they're like, Brent was a bad person. Like, he acted as a very selfish person for most of his life, but he always had the potential to change. And that's what we should focus on, is not whether or not someone is good or bad, but if they have the potential to be better. You're very upset about this. Who put them in charge? Who said they get to decide? They are twits in suits. I 100% agree. The not just the demons, but all the people in the bad place, or in the afterlife in this show, are all these like supreme beings, and they clearly think that they are better than humans, and therefore they've decided that they're in charge of all of this. I don't know who decided any of that, but it is what it is. Okay, so chapter 2 of Though Near or Far. Yeah, supreme beings. Yeah, supreme beings. Yeah, okay. Sean snaps his fingers. Michael stops immediately, listing forward with the momentum of his aborted lunge. Janet freezes, her own hand still outstretched towards Sean. Sean's too busy chuckling to himself to notice. He leans forward to push Michael back into his chair. Michael, glassy-eyed and pliant, lets him do it. He doesn't even seem to notice. And Janet, watching, can't move. That's illogical, of course. She's not broken. Her motor functions are intact. But Sean turns to look at her, and Janet has to pull back. What's wrong with him? She asks, wrenching her gaze back down to her phone. She can feel her voice wanting to waver, and it's all she can do to keep it level. If she looks Sean in the eye right now, she doesn't know what she'll do. It's the most terrifying lack of knowledge she's experienced yet. Not much. I've just reset his memories back to before this whole mess started. Sean returns to his chair as he explains, settles in, and starts shuffling papers around like nothing's happened. I'll give them back to him after he spent a few hundred years properly torturing those humans that he loves so much. Maybe this will cure him of that delusion, but if not, I'll be more than happy to do it all over again. Janet runs her tongue over her lips. It doesn't matter what she wants to say. She won't be any good to anyone if she's caught. Not that she was much good here. Not that she was much good here and now. That's super diabolical. It sounds flat to her ears. Sean just leans back in his chair with a thin smile. He wants unauthorized reboots. He can have them. Quiet. He's coming around. Michael's straightening up, blinking hard like he can't quite focus. He jolts when he notices Sean watching him. Sorry, boss. Kinda spaced out there. He doesn't even look at Janet. Neither of them do, now that there's another demon to speak to. Janet has never met an angel. She has no idea how they would have treated her if she hadn't been stolen. She does know that their architects don't stay in their neighborhoods either. Maybe it would have been about the same then. More than anything, she knows that Michael did stay. Michael's never acted like she wasn't even in the room. Maybe he had at first, back in the beginning, but never the Michael she'd known. It doesn't matter. There's no one left now to remember what came before. Pay more attention. Sean scolds Michael mildly. As I was saying, I have a special assignment for you. For particular humans who need to be tortured. Some idiot woke them from stasis before they were placed, and they were loose in headquarters for a few days before they were recaptured. Seriously? Michael leans forward in shock. That's one of the first things we learn. What rookie screwed that up? No one worth mentioning. Sean glances at Janet for the first time. It's an uncomfortably familiar gesture. He's looking for someone to appreciate that little joke. She mashes a string of A's and semicolons into her phone and pretends not to see. Anyway, now they think they know all about us. Real experts. I need someone to break them of that. And I think you're the man for the job. Me? Michael looks surprised, but the corners of his mouth twitch into a hesitant grin. Yeah, of course. I won't let you down. I'm sure you won't. Here are their files. No, Sean thinks that the bad Janet next to him is a bad Janet. He doesn't know that she's good Janet. Yes, she's in the bad Janet disguise. Michael takes the stack of folders Sean holds out and flips the top one open. Leaning forward, Janet can see the edge of a photograph, a flash of blonde hair. Michael only looks at it for a second. Anything specific you want done? I'll leave that to your discretion. Just keep quiet about it. I don't want upper management hearing about this. He narrows his eyes for a moment, then adds, I want these humans to really suffer. If you can do that and be circumspect, I may be willing to review your application for architect status again. Really? Michael grins and hops to his feet. It's like he just couldn't contain that little bounce of excitement. I guess I'll go too. Janet hops off the desk. Her chest is aching all of a sudden, and her voice sounds desperate, even to herself. She has to go. She needs to stay with him. Who knows what could happen otherwise? I'd love to watch these losers' guts fly everywhere. Great, come on. Michael heads out the door, all grins. She's never seen him that happy before, not about anything that wasn't human stuff. It makes sense. He'd tried all the torture so many times already. It had probably been hard for him to keep finding new things to be excited about. Once he's gone, Sean smiles, just a little. Take notes of what he does here. I'm going to need specifics to rub in his face later. Janet thought that she'd experienced hate before. But now, looking at Sean, that wounded anger she'd felt towards Jason seems so small. She'll burst into tears if she stays, or she'll slam his head into his desk until he can never smile like that again. That option sounds more satisfying. It still wouldn't be productive, though. So she just nods, sharply, and turns to hurry after her best friend. Janet is amazing. There's a little break here, so I'm going to have a drink. Yeah, Janet's amazing. Janet's one of my favorites. She's fantastic. I am always a bit like, it's very easy for me to care about, for somebody to get me to care about a character who starts out as like this emotionless, basically a machine. Janet's not a machine. But it's very easy to get me to care about a character who basically starts out as a machine and then learns how to love and be kind and what it means to be a friend and all of those things. It does my heart a real number, and it's very good. One time she punched me in the face. It was amazing. Okay. I should have stopped it, Janet concludes, worrying the sleeve of her leather jacket. Her voice is tight, her face isn't doing much, like she's not sure what expression she should have. That was the whole reason I was there to begin with, and now, because I couldn't, we're all back here. I don't even know why I made the fake good place again, I just didn't know what else to do. Eleanor cradles her hand against a frozen carton of petting a puppy-flavored yogurt. She's got a wrist brace on, courtesy of Janet, but she hadn't been able to just fix the damage. Apparently, access to human settings is one of the first things that get disabled if there's a rogue Janet. They've settled down in the tiny back kitchen of the Suggestion of Yogurt, which, in Eleanor's opinion, was not even one of the better frozen yogurt places around. Janet's sitting ramrod straight, with her back against the entrance. She's still wearing her bad Janet clothes, but she's twisting her hands together anxiously. Everyone else is just sitting around, exhausted. Tahani has affected a sort of artful droop against a shelf, resting her cheek against it like some beautiful, sad person in a movie. Only Jason's active at all. And even he seems a little listless, mechanically eating yogurt from his own carton. It's not puppy, Aaron, it's not puppy flavor. It's petting a puppy. It's the feeling you have. The yogurt tastes like the feeling you have when you pet a puppy. That's how taste in The Good Place works. Anyways, I just needed to correct that really quick, because, yeah. Eleanor's listing against Cheaty's shoulder herself. If it weren't for the throbbing pain in her wrist, she could fall asleep. This feels like the first time for days that they've all managed to sit down. You can only go through literal hell so many times before you need a breather, she guesses. Oh, Janet, it isn't your fault. Tahani manages to rouse herself and leans forward to lay a hand on Janet's knee. You couldn't have known that Sean was You couldn't have known what Sean was plotting. Why, if you could stop a demon from doing something like that, you probably would have stopped Michael reboots long ago. How can this even happen? Chidi asks. Michael's a demon. Can demons just do that to each other? Is everybody running around wiping memories all the time here? Janet shakes her head. It's never been done before, but it makes sense. Michael is currently inhabiting a human body, and Sean is his superior. Technically, anything Michael could do to you, Sean can do to him. So what do? We can't just sit here and eat frozen yogurt until Michael comes to forking disembowel us. Eleanor presses her eyes shut. Ugh, Janet. Why did you take away the cursing again? You said that this was all possible because Michael was in a human body. Chidi speaks slowly, like he's still working out the thought. If we could get him to leave that body somehow, would his memories still be there in whatever plane of existence he'd be on? Unclear, but that process is meant for wiping human flesh brains. It's possible that without one, he'd be fine. Janet frowns. But like I said, it hasn't been done before. I can't say for sure what would happen. Oh, so it's like, if you drop your phone, you gotta get a new one and connect it to the clouds, and they put all your stuff on it again. Jason asks around a mouthful of yogurt. Janet, can you make us an Apple store? Oh, or a hang glider and a really big fan. Wow. That comparison actually kind of helps. Eleanor's smashed her phone often enough. She knows all about that backup stuff. She sits up straight and sets her yogurt down, taking the time to feel out her idea. Lately, she's been working on just not blurting out the first shitty thing that flies through her head. Michael's usually the only one who thinks any of it's funny. That hasn't really helped. Giggling over horrible stuff with him kind of makes her day sometimes, but he's not here now, and the reminder of his absence helps her to stay on track. He'd think this were funny. Heck, evil Michael probably would too. So, she says, we gotta kill Michael. No! Chidi bursts out immediately in a strangled voice. What? No! This is not where I was going with that. I just thought... I don't know. He shakes his head a little. Maybe we could just kind of convince him to leave his body. What, just 'cause we said so? Eleanor snorts. That's never gonna work. It's not like we're killing him for real, man. He's an immortal, magical demon. We're just helping him be even more magical. It would still hurt. Non-lethally harming someone still isn't... Hold on a moment. Tahani interrupts. Is it even possible for us to kill Michael? As you said, he is a demon. I'm sure at some point during all those resets, at least one of us probably tried to fight him. To her credit, she manages to not look directly at Eleanor or Jason as she asks this. Eleanor winces a little, remembering Mindy's little theory board. Those knife attack plans were all in her handwriting, and obviously none of them had worked. I don't know. Janet? The human bodies demons use are more durable than normal ones. For example, they can withstand temperatures of several trillion degrees. Also, I punched him very hard in the face, and his skull didn't shatter. Janet smiles, bright and brittle. But they are technically destructible. Great. So what kills them? Eleanor! Dude! She exclaims back at Chidi. Look, you think I'm super excited about murdering Michael? The only reason this even happened is because he sacrificed himself for me. Michael's my friend, and he's kinda a shockingly good dude when he tries. But But if we want to try to get that guy back, we've got to get rid of the one who's here now. It's that thing you said before. The doctrine of double effect. Sorry, the what? Tahani's looking between them. That's right, she and Jason missed a whole lot of ethics stuff while they were off boning, huh? The doctrine of double effect. It means that if we're genuinely trying to help and death is just a really unfortunate side effect. Oh, sorry, I did that in Eleanor's voice. That is supposed to be in Chidi's voice. Give me a sec. The doctrine of double effect. It means that if we're genuinely trying to help and death is just a really unfortunate side effect. Chidi trails off and gets to his feet to pace. After a second, he takes off his glasses to try and clean them with his shirt. Even though she recognizes the anxious tick, Eleanor can't help but grin a little. He's actually chewing it over. Her point was good. She is knocking it out of the park on this ethics stuff lately. I don't know, he says finally. That doesn't seem like it could be applicable. But we know for sure that it's going to cause harm, and if we haven't really considered any other options... Janet, is it possible that... A cracking, groaning sound bursts through the room. It sounds like a tree falling over, right next to them, and Eleanor flinches instinctively. Hey, what's going on in here? Michael leans in through the open window of the previously windowless kitchen, elbows propped casually on the sill. Janet draws in a sharp breath. The window vanishes. She's on her feet before Eleanor can even formulate a response. Okay, we're leaving now. Eleanor scrambles upright, letting Jason help pull her, as everyone rushes out of the room. She expects Michael to be standing in the restaurant outside waiting for them, but no, they emerge into a completely unfamiliar hallway. It's long and dark, with a strange flat quality like they've stepped into a black and white movie. Long shadows crisscross the floor even though there's nothing there to cast them. Oh, he's messing with the controls. Janet hesitates only a second before picking a direction. I can fix it. Just keep moving. They run. Around them, the hallway stretches and shifts back into something that looks like it belongs in a frozen yogurt place. But it only stays that way for a second before the pastel paint melts into rough wood, which blurs back into soft green wallpaper that Eleanor only barely sees before it's suddenly smooth black stone. The changes are dizzying, and they aren't stopping. The rest of reality is shifting around too, even the floor beneath their feet. Eleanor stumbles on something she can't quite see, catching herself on a wall that shifts textures beneath her hand. Janet, can you fix it faster? I'm trying. He just keeps overwriting it. The wall turns into something Eleanor really hopes is raw chicken, and the floor sags under her weight. She presses her eyes shut, fighting back nausea. Oh God, this is like a really bad trip. I don't know. Michael's voice hums low in her ear, amused. I think I like it. Eleanor reacts on instinct. She whirls to shove him away, but she's the one who ends up stepping back as pain shoots up her hurt arm. Michael just laughs in her face, bright and condescending. But Jason, who's closest to her, doesn't hesitate. He takes 3 quick steps, lifts his arm, and Ice Molotov! Hurls his carton of frozen yogurt into Michael's face. Yogurt explodes everywhere. Eleanor flinches from the spray, grabbing for Jason's arm. Go! Go! But as they move, the hallway twists like a wet rag being wrung, collapsing in on itself. The last thing Eleanor sees before it snaps shut is Chidi's desperate face as he reaches for them, and then he's gone. She can't even hear him if he's shouting. Fork! She slams a palm against the wall. It's unyielding. It doesn't change again. They're trapped. Eleanor turns, hurting Jason behind her. She can handle this. She knows Michael better than anybody. And then she sees Michael and abruptly loses her train of thought. There's bright pink rivulets of yogurt running down his nose and chin. His hair's fucking soaked. Oh, man, she snorts. She shouldn't laugh. Oh, but she is. She's full on laughing now. The past few days have obviously been way, way too long. Wow, I can't believe we were actually running from you. I wish I could see. I wish I could get a picture of this. Michael gives a wry little chuckle, like he always does when she scores a point on him. Shaking his head, he produces a handkerchief from somewhere and starts to clean his glasses. I can't believe you actually did that. Takes some balls to try fending off a demon with... Is this frozen yogurt? He licks some off his lips. Man, couldn't even spare some ice cream. I don't know, homie. This stuff's pretty dope. Jason perks up. Hey, if you let us go, I can go get more and we can have a froyo fight later. You could totally get me back. That doesn't sound half bad. Michael smiles a little and snaps his fingers to banish the yogurt from reality. I was just gonna tie you all down and rip you to pieces. You know, normal stuff. But this chase thing is really fun. I can make a whole thing of it. Like a fox hunt, but... Like a fox hunt. Just sick a bunch of centipede hounds on you, get some horses. He trails off with a wistful sigh. Well, I'll have plenty of time to play around once I'm done here. Let's go get your friends. Michael snaps his fingers, and the world goes black. And that's chapter 2. I'm struggling to... I keep kind of messing up as I read. Earlier in the stream, I'm like, oh, it's good because I'm not messing up as much anymore. And then I fumbled my way through this whole thing, but that's okay. Yeah. Is it weird that I like how he's like, yeah, that could be fun. I was just gonna, tie you all down, rip you to pieces. It's just it's like I can hear it in Michael's voice when I read it, and I really like it. It's terrible. Oh, and I did that thing again where I didn't change my picture for the near or far one. My bad. I'm trying to do that. He is a brat cat. He is 100% a brat cat. And I think that's the thing I kind of like, I mean, we got to see Michael in the show when he's in the, not a nice person. He's kind of a bad, you might even call him a bad person. You get to see that in the show, but you never get to see, that the bad place does pretty tragically bad things to people. Kind of unforgivable things to people. So Michael has clearly done those things, but you never have to be really confronted with it, because throughout the show, it's obvious that he's like, oh, I'm more into psychological torture, but he's probably ripped people apart and done terrible things. One of the lines that Sean says to him is, who taught you how to reach down a human's mouth and grab them by the butt and pull them inside out? And he's like, you did. you bet. What does he say? You bet I did, sister. So you know that Michael's done some pretty heinous shit. And I like fanfic that I like confronting the fact that he's done really terrible things. So yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why I like that. It's like, it makes me very giddy. It's like, yay, Michael, you were a piece of shit. And yeah, again, I just really like the writing in this. I feel like this person really can capture character voices and really, like I said, understands how these characters work together and why they work so well together. Which is, I find a lot of the time when I read fanfic, it focuses on two people. or it'll focus on one person. It usually doesn't. It's not an ensemble thing. There's characters that the author struggles with or just doesn't want to write about, so they don't. And that's not a bad thing, but it's just different to read fanfic where everyone's being included sort of equally. I like the thing. Oh, thank you. I like the thing you wrote where you touched on the fact that he has done these things and also has had them done to him, which is why he knows how human bodies work, that they can bruise, etc. Yeah, that to me was like, he says in the TV show, he says one of the reasons that they're given a human body is to know how to torture you better. I can't imagine that that would mean much, like that would mean anything other than so that you can experience pain and torture so that you know kind of what works. Like, I don't know to what extent the bad place tortured its own people, but presumably they have. You know, you're in a human form, and then so you know what it's like to stub your toe, or you know what it's like to have shitty, terrible things happen to you, and then you know how bad it is for them. There's a very not sinister, what's the word? There's a very, yeah, they're demons with a lot of time on their hands. Yeah. There's a very not empathetic, not kind sort of I'm trying to think of the opposite of being empathetic. Sociopathic. I guess there's a very sociopathic like relationship there between everybody. Callous, yeah, very callous. Very cruel and callous way of treating each other, but they think that it's normal because that's how they've always been treated. And so when Michael starts to get, you know, approval from other people, and he starts to feel like he makes real, genuine connections with people, he changes. And he realizes that he wants to be a better person because he likes who he is when he's that person more than he likes the other person. And that's really sweet and nice and good. And I love it. So I might actually have to stop the stream here for a sec because I think my dad wanted to have yeah, he's so thrown for a loop by Ellie because Ellie is unfailingly kind and open and like flower to the face. So yeah. So yeah, I'll stop it here. I'll come on later, and I'll read a chapter of the other thing, but my dad wanted to have dinner at about 5 o'clock, and it's 5 o'clock now, so, entire bouquet, straight to the jaw! Get wrecked with kindness! Alright, so I'm going to stop it, but I will talk to you soon, and, yeah, like I said, probably in about an hour, I will start up again, if you are down for it, if you feel like it. Alright, I will talk to you soon. Bye. Okay. Just adjusting my stuff back. Let me just go to... so I can see the chat. Okay. I need to get a new pop filter because it sucks. It sucks real bad. Move my chair closer. I just ate So I feel incredibly unprepared to read, but I'm going to. And I'm going to open a beer. Because why not? Oh, okay. Crash. Hello. Oh no. Waffles is banging up the place. She breaks my window. Fucking slams the door. But how can I resist that smile? I be banging! Alright. Oh. I don't know why. I ate and now I'm just like, oh, I feel like a lump. I'm gonna yawn again. I'm so sorry. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, 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 okay. So I was going to read the second chapter of Awakenings. I'm going to do what I did with the Good Place one. I'm going to just do a recap. And even though this is chapter 2, like on fanfiction.net, this is considered part 1, chapter 1. So there we go. Yeah, recap. It rained real bad. It rained real bad and it real cold. And then Smith there, and he all rained, and then it hurt, because he all feverish. No, so, I don't think I'm spoiling anything by explaining it. Yeah, it rained real bad, and I just tripped over some Smith. Or it's just some Smith laying there. And you know those nipples were real hard. Sorry, it's cold rain, okay? So when they said that his shirt's like plastered from the rain, I mean, come on. Come on. Like bullets. He didn't need a gun. He had fucking bullets in his shirt. So I'm gonna just try to explain it a little bit because I think that while this is a very good fic, again, it can be hard to get into because you're kind of like, what's going on? So the first chapter involves meeting a girl named Aleph. And Aleph says that she is no longer human. She doesn't say what she is, but she says she's not a human anymore. She is not in the Matrix, but she is also not in Zion. She is in the Zion mainframe. So she is trapped in the Zion mainframe while the battle of Zion between the machines and the machines coming down in the third movie and tearing up the place. She's basically saying like the mainframe is experiencing she says at one point, like, even though she's in a place that's made of code, there's a physical world that is being destroyed and damaged, and the mainframe reflects that. Wires and stuff being torn apart, things coming apart, things breaking. And that's why she's talking about how she can see this red electrical storm in the sky, this horrible death rattle of the world, this horrible, horrible thing, the end of the world. So she is trapped in there, and she's looking for a door to try to find her way out, to get back to the Matrix, to find Smith. So that's what that whole first chapter was about. Just that there exists within the Zion mainframe sort of a mirror image of the real world. And, she's trapped there. The next part is going to be, the first little bit is again a little bit sort of like I mentioned the other day, that this person asks themselves questions a lot. So there's a lot of like, when did this start? When did this begin? And her kind of going back through her memories and her ideas of like what's going on. And then the story starts sort of like at the start. So it's a lot, but that's okay. So sorry, I don't mean to sound like, ugh, I have to read this. I want to read this. I just, like I said, I ate, and I feel very full. So, okay, ugh, ugh. Here we go. So, this is part 1, The Wound, and it begins with a quote by T.S. Eliot from The Wasteland, and it goes, "There is not even silence in the mountains, but dry, sterile thunder without rain." Because, rain. Okay, I'm not trying to be mean. I feel bad. I feel like a dick when I say stuff like that. I just need to sort of catch my breath. I don't know why. I feel very breathless. Because, rain. Why not? When did it begin? Was it that moment up in the air? 70 floors up, to be exact, but the distance swiftly decreasing? The wind roaring past her ears as she fell, arms stretching out into emptiness, as if she was reaching for something. Down, 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 through an eternity. As if the hard, programmed ground would never rise to catch her? Was it earlier, perhaps as she stood next to a back then still Agent Smith in a midnight field lit with a bejeweled sky of faked stars? Somewhere right in the middle of nowhere, not yet realizing her fears, and had already deserted her. Was it earlier, in a green patch of park beside the busy Sunday afternoon street, sitting by a dried-up little fountain and waiting for the opening gambit of the game? Was that it? The first move to determine the entire game and the outcome, so that all the rest was merely the journey? No. It began earlier. 6 cycles of the world earlier, on a crumbling bridge over the abyss, a burning city behind her, a shining city before her, while a figure clad in blazing white raised aloft a sword, and fire ran down the blade. Was that it? The first move rippling out from the still center of all things, the instant when the world was made? Earlier. Earlier. Perhaps the seeds were already all sown in blissful ignorance, when she sat on a sunny cafe patio with her cheerful, chattering younger sister, her own thoughts elsewhere and impatient, trying to tune out Lucy's steady stream of words. She turned her head absent-mindedly and saw a black Audi with dark-tinted windows pulling up across the street. It stopped. Yes. That was the first move, the casting of the die and all the rest. As they said, yes, that was the first move, the casting of the die, and all the rest, as they said, was merely the journey. It began with insomnia, which first crept up over her aboard the Hyperion. The quiet assertiveness and little ado. Soon, Aleph was down to 2-3 hours at a time if she was lucky, and kept breathing right. Otherwise, she lay on her back and stared vainly at the panels above her head, counting the tangled pipes, watching for minuscule bends and irregularities in the metal, or movement of dust particles in the air. Oblivion escaped her. It had happened once before, a number of years ago, but this time things seemed different. Aleph had been thinking already for a while of giving up active duty, and the sleeplessness seemed like a sign. Symptoms of burnout, she said, when handing in her resignation. The guys were frankly incredulous, but Tio, to his credit, was unusually understanding. "Your work hasn't suffered," he said matter-of-factly. But she knew him well enough to see that he was concerned for her. "Not yet. No need to take chances." She was inwardly touched, but did not want to show it too much in front of him. There was no point now, anyway. "Thank you, though," she added, after a moment. Counselor Hammond came through for her, as he always did, and offered her a job back in Zion, taking care of security at the archives. A highly responsible position, said the message from the council, vital to Zion's survival, etc., etc. A librarian's job. A quiet one. It would be just what she needed, Aleph figured. Time to herself, to regroup, and sort things out. No more constant stress and excitement, no more dodging agents or sentinels, no more increasingly obsessive communications with the Nebuchadnezzar about the prophecy, no more Tio. If she were to be completely honest with herself, well, that no longer mattered. Her duties were easy, almost non-existent. From time to time, something would come in over the lines, usually a request to analyze a list of potentials, or maybe some frequency. Yeah, sorry, I say Tio? Maybe it's Theo? I think it's Theo. Theo. I say Tio, but I think it's Theo. You can correct me. I'm bad with names. If it's not Tio, it's Theo. Yeah, Theo. So Theo seems to be her captain. That captain of the Hyperion. Hyperion. I have a lot of sympathy now for, actors that, they say something wrong for like a whole movie or whatever. And they're like, how did nobody tell them? It was like, it's so easy to just not know how to say things. it's so, and if nobody tells you, you don't know. So, yeah, I'm going to say Tio because that's how I always say it. Oh, no. You weren't correcting my pronunciation. You just wanted to be sure, like, that you understood. That's totally fine. And even if you were correcting me, that's okay too, because I say a lot of shit wrong, so it's okay. I've got to find where I was. Sorry. Her duties were easy, almost non-existent. From time to time, something would come in over the lines, usually a request to analyze a list of potentials, or maybe some frequency statistics for agent encounters. But people rarely came to the archive rooms themselves, and she was left to her solitude and her sleeplessness. She had almost expected the insomnia to retreat once she was away from the ship. Needless to say, that hope never materialized. In Zion, the nights grew ever longer, seconds into minutes, then into hours. Of course, there were in reality no longer any such things as nights or mornings except in the human mind, which was capable of too many sorts of tricks. She started to think too much again. Aleph knew perfectly well where that would lead, but there was nothing she could do about it. Leaning back in her chair before the computer screens, listening to the steady, low hum of the machines from the engineering level just down below, she found herself recalling the first 23 years of her life with increasing frequency. The town where she had grown up, which she had not known to be just a pod among millions of other pods. All exactly the same. The people whom she had once called her childhood friends, mother, father, sister. What would Lucy say now? The girl had always been so talkative, motor-mouthed, really, even as a child. With some concentration, Aleph could almost hear her again, that sly little American teenager, her voice somewhere in the back of her brain. At times it would say, "Let's go for a walk, Addie. Get some fresh air, take a look at the moonlight and the stars." Sometimes Aleph listened, even getting up from her chair. Sometimes she made it as far as the door. In other words, all the wrong kinds of thoughts. To keep them at bay, she tried thinking about other, less illusory things. She thought about past missions, played them over from memory as if from a record in her archives, imagined herself going on another and another, watching the copper tops, running from the deadly images that only looked like men in suits and shades. Useless as a cure for insomnia, but at least it kept her from forgetting which world she lived in, for the most part. Yet her mind kept straying to the wrong kinds of thoughts. Sorry, I just read your comment. I've thought a lot about this. Like when you have a relation in the Matrix, when you have a baby, is that baby actually yours, or is it just like... Yeah, here's the thing, is that, so there is a character switch in the first movie, and originally, she was supposed to be a woman in the Matrix and a man in the real world. So the idea being that your self-image, because they basically said, like, the Matrix creates the image that you have of yourself. It's called a residual image, and it's how you viewed yourself. So that made me think, like, you could wake up and be a totally different person. Like, your self-image is not necessarily what you actually look like. And so I kind of always assumed that yeah, like, I would even go so far as to say, like, you could be in the real world, like, a person who looks like you're of Irish descent, but when you were growing up in the Matrix, you might have had Asian parents, and your self-image could have been Asian. And, like, that... Because I just don't really believe... I don't really believe that the machines would try... Like, they're not going to be monitoring who's having... Yeah, we only see people who look the same in the Matrix and in real life. And they also make a statement that, like, most people leave the Matrix at a very young age. So maybe your self-image changes. Like, the residual image of who you are in the Matrix changes because you now know what you look like. You now know. So that's what I'm saying is, like, you might have a person who grew up who maybe is like 9 or 10 when they escape the Matrix, and they might, think that they're a white person, and they wake up and they're not, or, whatever. And because I can't see the machines caring that much about getting any of that stuff right. I don't think they're going to take the biological of those two people and put it together, because they're growing a whole field of people. They don't care. As long as the illusion is maintained, then that's all they care about. They don't care about a familial, the sense that we have of what a family is. They don't care about biological descendants. They don't care about any of that stuff. It's just all for the purpose of the illusion. So I would have to assume that your family, the people that you view as your family, are probably not your family in the biological sense. Which makes more sense to me when I think of it as like, you know, you have people leave the Matrix and they're like, oh, but you'd think you'd care about like what happened to your family or things like that. I would imagine a lot of people do. But again, if you leave the Matrix at a very young age, 9 or 10 years old, I think by the time you're older, you don't feel connected to those people and you're like, they're not really my family. They were for a while, but like biologically we're not. I don't know. There's a lot of questions with the Matrix. I think the Matrix is a really cool concept, but when you start to really break it down into that stuff, it becomes hella depressing really fast. I guess it depends on what takes less effort, making up a new identity each time someone is born or scanning the new person. Yeah, like, I guess the thing is like, you don't have to, I don't think that you have to make up an identity. Like, I think, like, the human brain will fill in the gaps, right? Like, I don't know. It's a very weird thing. And I've often wondered, like, how would birth and pregnancy and all of that even work in the Matrix? It is like, it is very strange. And it's something that, I don't, I get to a certain point with it and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't try puzzling this out. Maybe I shouldn't just do that. They have, there's a lot of things I find kind of strange or funny, like, uh, in one of the, first of all, if machines were really like adamant, like if the humans blacked out the sky and they were like, fuck, we need humans to like do this stuff, they could have destroyed all of us and they didn't. And I'm like, man, if I was the machines, I would have just destroyed everybody, right? Kill all humans and then hook cows up to the Matrix and just make it an endless field of grass where the cows get to eat. Why would you take humans who need to be tricked and who need to be fooled? Just get rid of those fools. You know, genocide run those fools and put cows in the Matrix. Put something that doesn't require I'm thinking like a demon again. Okay, I've always maintained, this is one thing, ever since I saw the first movie, I've always maintained, if you don't want people to leave the Matrix and form a rebellion, why don't you put spinning saw blades in the tubes? So when people wake up and they go, oh shit, I'm in the real world, and it shoots them through a tube, they just go through a thing of like spinning blades. Like, problem solved. You don't have a resistance. Okay. Anyways. Okay. Anyways. The Matrix is a much smarter thing than me. Because they do the whole point of it is philosophy and blah blah blah, right? But I'm like, use cows, spinning blades. Nobody listens to my ideas around here. Wouldn't be proper, just not cricket. Put away your ukulele or I'll tell you where to stick it. Okay, anyways. Okay. Now back to this very serious thing. Okay. Yeah, the movie was very, very short. The moment Neo wakes up, he just goes through a saw blade, and it's like, well, that's the end of that. It's a trilogy. It's 3 consecutive minutes. There was the first minute, the second minute, and the third minute. It's all good. Okay. Excuse me. A week after returning to Zion for good, Aleph moved her cot into the archives room. She began designing test routine, simulated attacks upon the system in her care, an entire list of what the machines might attempt, then a list of possible defenses. She ran the routines in sequence, one after another. After they were done, she would go over them, switch their order around slightly, change a diagnostic or two. Then she would run them again. Although the work did occasionally tire her out enough so that she managed a couple hours of sleep without too much tossing and turning, it never yielded anything as useful as a security breach. The Zion mainframe was a good system. The machines had been trying to break in for over a century, and they had not succeeded yet. Yet that did not mean they had stopped trying, Aleph rationalized. So, night after night, she sat in the archives rooms, tweaking the scans, waiting for them to run their course, and then to start running again. To keep her company, she had the shadows that seemed to flow and swell from the walls, surrounding her with their gentle folds and the flickering codes across the bank monitors. She would end up watching them for hours, the lines falling down the screens with always the same constant speed, always the same grassy shade of green, luminous in the darkened room, hypnotic, like the rain that once upon a time fell in the Matrix. When they'd been kids, Lucy had always wanted to run outside whenever it rained. She would jump over the puddles, her face lifted to the silver-gray sky, spinning and waving her arms about. She had always loved the rain. Even if it was nothing but a rain of codes, added her sister softly, somewhere across the room. But in the desert, it never rained. Aleph's breath caught in her throat. After a second or two, she gripped the edge of the table carefully with both hands and pushed herself away from the console. She looked up, straining her gaze into the dark corners. In the silence of Zion's night, her heartbeat was suddenly as loud as the tattooing of a drum. Don't hide there in the shadows, Lucy. Sorry, sis. The girl sounded a bit sheepish, but she did not step out into the light. She never did. I wish I could see you. I wish the same, Addie, mused Lucy. Despite the darkness, Aleph could imagine her face, the way she would shake her head, pushing aside the loose strands of black hair that were always falling across her eyes. But, well, actually, you don't want to see me, dear sis, not anymore. Not the way I look now. Trust me, it's better this way. No, said Aleph out loud, before she could stop herself. But Lucy did not reply. The startling sound of her own voice hung in the air for a long while, then faded gradually away into nothing. She was alone, sitting in a vault-like room miles below the earth. In the small hours of the morning, her sister had been dead for 7 years. Back when Lucy had been still alive, thought Aleph, whenever she used to clam up. Suddenly, and just like that, just like now, she would always give a little shrug, almost as if in apology, but not quite. Then she would roll her eyes, a typical teenager's expression. That was all she had been, really. Just a typical teenage girl. Just a kid. She remembered the deafening screech of tires as the second car spun around the corner straight at them. She remembered the pavement and her own voice screaming at Lucy to get down, as the air around them erupted into a hail of bullets. She remembered the gun, how black and curiously narrow the barrel seemed from the wrong end. The tall, dark-suited figure, but she couldn't remember the figure's face, no matter how much she tried. Everything happened so fast that she never saw its face. Or maybe it didn't have a face at all. Even after all these years, she could never remember any of the agents' faces. It's all right, Addie. Don't think about that, whispered Lucy, trying to be soothing, even though she was not actually there. You know you're not supposed to think about that. They killed you. All it took was an agent, a computer program. That machine world, that falsehood up there killed you. That's why I fought against them. That's why I'm still here. That's why I still need to do this. I know, sis. I know. It's all right. If only you could have come with me. If only you could have seen the real world. A pause. You have seen the real world, Addie. You have seen it for me. Yet I cannot even see you now, Lucy. For all the reality of the world, it is too late for that. Oh, gods, I told you, you don't need to look at me. She must be rolling her eyes again, just about now, imagined Aleph. Especially not when there are so many other things you're supposed to be looking at, remember? The clouds and the sun and the green rain and the stars of the sky, everything made out of code. The quiet, girlish voice trailed off inside her head. For a while, neither of them spoke. Hey, Addie? There was something wistful about Lucy's voice now. Back when she'd been alive, her sister had never been wistful. Next time you jack in, look at a star for me. Something beeped behind her. Aleph all but jumped out of her chair, although it was only a single, short sound meant to be unintrusive. She spun around, facing the monitors again. The test routine had stopped, and a line of code was flashing against the black background of the screen, just along the bottom edge, as bright as a priceless necklace of emeralds. Welcome to the Zion Archives, it said. You have selected file HF12-1. Abruptly, Aleph sat up very straight. Without quite knowing why, she turned her head and glanced behind her back, then up at the ceiling almost furtively. There was no one, of course. Lucy was gone. More precisely, she had never been there at all. It was 3:16 a.m. The Zion mainframe was not as impenetrable as she had hoped, after all. And that's the end of the chapter. The way I said the last sentence, it didn't sound like the end of the chapter, but it's the end of the chapter. Yeah, so, to kind of put this into perspective, Addie is Aleph, and she basically wasn't doing very well on the Hyperion. She got put into... They said, well, we have a job for you at the Zion Archives, and you can, like, test the systems and whatever. So that's what she went to go do, but she's very slowly sort of getting into her own head, talking to her dead sister, and all that jazz, which is, you know, she knows is not a healthy thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to cope. I think, I could be wrong about this, but I think that coping with the real world is a difficult thing for a lot of people I would imagine for a lot of people, it's a very difficult thing in the universe of the Matrix. Like, they make out like Cypher's a really bad dude for doing what he did. And he is, because he, you know, was going to betray, like, his whole crew and everything. But you can kind of understand why people would want to forget. Like, I get it. I may not agree with it, but I get it. So, so yeah, Addie's just, I don't think she regrets, the world, but there's just this thing of having to cope with it, and I don't think she copes very well with it. She's a little bit crazy, but in a good way. Maybe it's in a good way. Yeah. I could keep going if you wanted. I could read another chapter, or I could read something else. I just don't feel like ending it right now. I'd kind of like to keep going. But it's up to you. I know that you are up late right now, so you might want to go to bed, which is totally okay. Okay, I will stop for today, and I will probably, I might do one tomorrow. It depends. I think we're getting up early tomorrow. We're going to Costco and we're doing a couple of things, so we'll just see how things pan out. But yeah, this is basically an excuse for me to push fanfic on people. uh, yeah, we need to get more people in here. I don't know. I feel really bad that it's really just been you and me, but like I've been doing posts and stuff, but I know that everybody's kind of doing their own thing right now. Um we'll see what you can do. It's nice when there's like three, two or three people. That's quite nice cuz it means that I feel less like um it feels weird when it like it feels weird when it's just one person, only because it's like you and I chat in like on the phone. So now it being very one way where it's um like I'm the one talking and then I just see you're writing. It's kind of odd. It's not terrible. It's not bad. It's just it's different. It's odd. Okay, so I'm going to stop and I will see you soon. Okay, thank you for coming. Bye.